Hey everyone, Anne here from Momocha Reviews, and I'm extremely excited to be back for another review of the Capcom Monster Hunter Figure Builder series. This is volume 22, and if you've seen any of our videos before, you'll know why I'm so excited. The box alone already sets this apart. We have a gorgeous backdrop of the Citadel area from Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak to greet us, and to show us that Capcom has a lot in store with us. If you actually look at the rest of the box, there is something different down at the sides as well. Instead of going for the usual plain design, Capcom has given us a little extra bonus. These are cutouts of hunters, palicos, and palamutes in two different armor sets. This is the Lunagaron and the Malzeno ones in particular. The outlines have these little tabs at the bottom, so if you do cut them out, you can theoretically have them stand up. There are actually more on the sides. Here's one of a female hunter in the Malzeno armor, and there's one of a male on the other side. And from the back, with them showing us how to use these tabs to create a stand for the backdrop of the Citadel, it's kind of clear that Capcom wants us to add these little decors for our setups at home. They very generously give even more cutouts in the inner sleeves, which is actually pretty clever. Here's Palico and Palamute in the Lunagaron set, and on the other side you have the Hunter equivalent. So as per usual, there are 6 boxes in the set following the blind box format, so you don't actually know what you're gonna get until you open it. I find this a little funny considering Capcom clearly wants us to get the whole set to get the backdrop and the hunters as well, but that aside, the individual boxes pretty much showcase the lineup for this volume. In this case, it's Allmother Narwa as well as Malzeno and Lunagaron, Bishaten and the Shogun Ceanataur, as well as Apex Diablos. Also, as per the usual, when you get all 6 figures, each one comes with an extra part. Put them all together, you get a clear figure. In this volume, it is a clear Malzeno, but also Capcom is giving us a little bit of an extra based on that little bit on the right. We are getting stickers. Anyway, let's open this up. It is a tearaway box. There's no other way to open it. So there's no take-backsies, basically. So as a standard, each box comes with a base, a support stand, as well as the monster figure itself. And as promised, there's also a clear part that makes up one whole figure. Each box has a different part. This time it's Malzeno. Also special to volume 22 is that they're giving stickers, one for each monster in the lineup. And fast forward, here's a look at all of them. They pretty much match the artwork used in Sunbreak. So I opened all the boxes and assembled them all together, and you can tell right away that this is quite a lineup, a very exciting one to talk about, and we are gonna start with the Bishaten. So first impression, this is a very vibrant little figure, and I've got to say I do like the pose, and I like this effort that it's actually not touching the base at all. It is supported by the support stand that it comes with, so that it's just hanging, and it looks like it's mid-twist to throw that little fruit bomb, that persimmon, I think, at a hunter. Taking a closer look, the detail is pretty great. There's a lot of feathering to create this sense of fur and feathers. Lots of detail on the face, and I like the shading in general. But the highlight, I think, is like these really bright blue, turquoise, teal wings that it has. And I really love the detailing where the fur transitions into feather along with the colors going from dark blue to turquoise. It's a really cool detail, one that you don't really pick up on in the game, so something I'm really appreciating. Bit of a harsh seam line here over by the tail leading up to that very gnarly and that's kind of like half claw, half hand. I'm not really sure what to call it, but not something you'll really notice considering it'll probably be posed facing the front anyway. Overall, I definitely wouldn't be mad to receive this in a blind box, though I gotta say that the colors are maybe a little bit too vibrant or harsh. They're kind of a departure from the more natural colors that we've gotten in the past. I don't know. Quality wise, however, it is a pretty good figure, pretty decent, and I wouldn't be mad to get it. This next boy, however, I was definitely pleased to receive. This is the Apex Diablos. If I'm not mistaken, this is actually the first time that Diablos has appeared in the Figure Builder series since Volume 10, which was years ago, really. And they really went all out with its return to the series, considering how big it is and how well detailed and how grandiose its pose is. I mean, just look at that. You can tell that Capcom really wanted to go literally big with this, considering the fact that it is made of 3 separate parts. Coming out of its package, the wings are actually detached and something that you have to build onto the Diablos itself, and they really did well with designing this. This is the first time I'm seeing Capcom have a peg as well as this more thin style to fit into the figure itself. It's very clever actually, and I think it's one of the most secure fits that we've had for anything detachable so far. But looking at the figure overall, gotta say it's an amazing pose. You can feel like the ground reverberating beneath you on the desert plains. It kind of reminds me of a turf war I've seen of a big and a small Diablos together. Very cool. Lots of detail. You can see the scaliness on the other side of the wings, on the horns. Gorgeous, beautiful paint job and shading. There's a leathery effect on the wings, and it almost looks really, really rough along the tail. It's very accurate to the game, and when you touch it, it is rough. Like, they really went all out with the detail on the texture, which I super appreciate, especially in contrast with the leathery wings. I really just love this figure, and I feel very lucky to have gotten it. I was not expecting it to be this great. Anyway, next up, we have the Shogun Ceanataur. If I'm not mistaken, this is the very first time it's appearing in the Figure Builder series, and I think they also went pretty much all out with the pose as well. Like with the Bishaten one, it is completely suspended, as you can see here. And something I want to point out is that its limbs are pretty much completely flexible. I don't want to test like how flexible they are, but compared to like figures in the past, this is probably one of the most malleable materials I've ever seen used for any Capcom figure builder. There is a lot of give, so I'm not afraid of this thing denting, though I am afraid of this deforming, so that's something to watch out for. Turning it around, very nice detail and texture on the shell that it has. Gonna admit, I am a bit disappointed that they didn't go with the monoblos skull that it sometimes wears in the game. That would have been really epic. But otherwise, this is actually pretty well made. Not gonna complain. Moving on to the side, you can see a little more detail, especially along its head. I guess I'll call it a head. This line of rocky dots over here. Little interesting detail to add some more intrigue to this figure. My chief complaint really is the finish of the blue paint of the body and claws. I'm not sure how apparent it is on camera, but it does have this plasticky, shiny finish that kind of that you kind of see in like wet paint when it's not quite dry, when it has this like shell at the surface, if you know what I mean. Overall, it's not like the worst, but it is one of the biggest disappointments I've seen with a Capcom figure builder so far. This is the opposite of what I can say about Lunagaron though. I mean, let's just take a few seconds to absorb just how awesome this figure is. I mean, from that crazy pose, I love it. The finish to make it look icy and a little bit metallic. It looks so great from different angles. I am extremely pleased about the Lunagaron figure. So dynamic. It really looks like it's just launched itself over the ice and is sliding down very gracefully. Just lovely. So much detail and texture. And when you take a closer look, they really got all of the ridges, the scaly effect of the Lunagaron right, as well as the paint job, darker blue down closer to the body, and this metallic white at the end. And they all just form this beautiful line along this curved line along the body. Just looks really, really great. The face is really cool, looks really feral and wild, pretty ferocious, just like in the games. I really would have loved if they did the werewolf version of the Lunagaron, but this is still really stunning. Claws look sharp and dangerous, and again, I really like that Lunagaron is completely suspended versus having its paw have that little peg at the bottom and seem a little flat. This is just so dynamic, and the detail extends all the way to the underside. They actually put these sky blue, light blue details on the chest, which I never noticed even in the game, so I really just love the Lunagaron. Anyway, moving on to our next figure, Malzeno. This is not our first time reviewing an iteration of Malzeno. We actually have a review of the amiibo that came out along with Sunbreak. Pose-wise, this figure is almost exactly the same as that, with the tail facing a different way. But one glaring difference is just how neon pink its chest detail is. It's kind of distracting, and it's kind of different from the scheme of Malzeno in general. It's just so much brighter versus the darker violet that we see in the games. Luckily, they didn't abandon the gold detail on the horns and on the tips of the wings. The wings are a little malleable. There is some give, so you can see the detail inside. I like that they give like the stretch a bit of an endpoint with the tail so that you don't go too far. Overall, the texturing is also a little strange because I remember this seeming a little more elegant with the amiibo, and this one just kind of seems like I'm looking at a castle wall. That's the kind of texture I get. Luckily, the back is the same, though. As you can see, the fin on like the back on the tail, it is dented. This is something that Capcom figure builders are prone to. Luckily, the shading is still really great along the tail, which it seems a little less substantial than it is in the games, but still looks quite deadly here. It's not too bad of a deviation. But considering that this is the title monster of Sunbreak, I feel like they could have done a little better, especially considering that the Magna Malo Capcom figure builder matched up pretty well with the amiibo. So, great pose, not so great texturing and paint job, but passable figure. Next one is the reason I actually got Volume 22, and this is Allmother Narwa. And what a way to commemorate an amazing boss fight than to go big, like literally big. Narwa is huge. I do believe this is the same scale that they used for Narwa in Volume 21, but they allow her to like fully stretch out and show that power this time. And that's something that you can chalk up to the fact that she's also two parts like the Apex Diablos we saw earlier. So taking a look at the full figure, very interesting pose that they went with. It actually kind of mirrors how Ibushi was posed in the previous volume, so that's a very cool call out to Narwa taking on Ibushi's life force, so to speak. The colors they're very rainbow themed, kind of like with the game, though I don't recall the colors being this metallic. And that becomes more apparent around the mouth area, that really gnarly mouth. The detail on her face is kind of dark in comparison to everything else in a way I'm not really a fan of. Anyway, the fin ridges are here, but interestingly, they have absolutely zero give, especially in comparison to like this Shogun Ceanataur or even her previous model in Volume 21. The shading and transitions between all the colors, though, it's pretty beautiful, I have to say. I feel like what they could have done to improve this is to maybe lessen these darker edges that you see, which are apparent again mostly with their face and a lot along the tail, which looks very cool. Like I find this cooler than her original tail. It looks spiky and thorny even. And flipping her over, you do actually get a lot more detail as well versus the previous. Like her abdominal sac is almost translucent this time compared to the first where it was just a solid color. It's a very cool effect, kind of mirroring how it was during the boss fight. I appreciate that this isn't just a rehash like the way they've done a lot of Apex figures. This is a completely different figure and collectible alongside Goddess of Thunder Narwa from the previous volume. Overall, I think Volume 22 was a pretty solid set of figures, though I think there were a lot of hits and misses, especially in terms of the paint job. The guys in blue are a little more saturated than I'd like, actually, but the poses in this volume are pretty on point for all of them. Even the ones that I wasn't so happy with, the poses are great. But the winners of this volume are clearly just Diablos and Lunagaron. They are epic, and I would recommend getting it purely for these two guys. But if you're not quite sold, there's also the additional figure that this set comes with, because each box again comes with an extra clear part. And these clear parts put together create a clear Malzeno. Pretty easy to assemble, though unlike what I said with the Diablos earlier, the pegs to slide into the body aren't quite stable, so it's pretty fragile in comparison. But it looks pretty great. In fact, I'm a lot happier with this than the Malzeno with a paint job that we got in the set. It just looks so cool, and the colors remind me of wine/blood, which I think is really a lot cooler for Malzeno. And because they come in separate parts, there are a few differences, like how the wings are just naturally spread out a lot more. Very cool and very weird and very sad that I'm happier with the clear version of a figure than the real thing, just saying. But of course, one more question you may have is how does the packaging look with the figures? So I've taken the liberty of cutting out a few of the figures and assembling them. This is actually pretty easy, especially if you just follow along the outline and leave the tabs. The cardboard is thick enough that it will stand on its own eventually. And while I don't think I'm going to display my figures this way, it is really cool that Capcom did give us the opportunity to recreate the cover of Sunbreak with having the hunter, the buddies, and putting Malzeno in front of this Citadel background. It's really just cute and it's so great. And Capcom really went hard with Volume 22 overall, I've gotta say. The background, the cutouts, the stickers, and the great poses, they really gave a lot of value for this particular volume, and I'm really excited to see what they do next for the next ones, which I've already pre-ordered. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. If you found this video useful at all, we'd really appreciate if you left us a like, and if you want to see more Monster Hunter content, you're free to subscribe to us at Allmother Reviews. Thanks again for watching. This is Anne. Goodbye!